Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. We're discussing and wrapping up today the college planning segment, which has been a long series on how to help people evaluate all the resources and strategies that others have found helpful in making the most of your money toward helping fund college education for either yourself, a loved one, a student, a child, grandchild, whoever it might be. And I'm wrapping up this series by re-sharing with all of you some of the resources I'd like you to be able to have access to go out and do some of your own research and be able to figure out or filter through some of these areas. So I ended up last week, we were talking about a number of different resources. I'll continue with them. And I'm sharing with you resources. So you'll want to get a pen and paper and write some of these down or put them into your phone, not while you're driving if you're listening to this on the radio. Please. I do have rebroadcasts available, so contact our office. I'll be glad to get you access to the rebroadcasts so you could write them down while you're being safe. But I want to share with you resources that you can go look at and that I've found helpful. I don't endorse the resources, but I am trying to share resources with you that I know are out there that you could do your own research. So I'll start off with where I ended up last week, a couple of these. One of them is called savingforcollege.com. And what I want you to look at when you go into some of these resources are beyond the first page, because I want you to dig deeper and find out strategies. The one I had pulled from there was grandparents. So it was the article was called College Savings 101, but it got into grandparents. Well, there are specific gifting strategies for grandparents that benefit the grandparents and benefit the students. Whether you're looking at 529 plans or just regular gifting, it doesn't matter. There are specific strategies. When we look at grandparents themselves, and I could dig real deep on this and give you many different benefits, but there's an article that I found here. It's in a professional publication, so I might have to send it to you if you wanted to, but it's called onwallstreet.com, and there was an article here on back to school on 529s, and it was on 529 plans. And then there was an article excerpt on there on grandparents and college planning and gifting and all that. It was very, very interesting. And anybody who's interested, I could share with you some of these specific strategies. But sometimes we have a student that wants to go to school. I'll share one of them with you now. And the grandparent says, or the parents, you're saying, hey, we don't have enough money. We didn't save enough. And we can't get financial aid because we make too much and this and that and the other. Now what are we going to do? And you share that with your parents, which are the grandparents of the student. And the grandparents are trying to think, well, how can we help? And they might come up with, well, we'll give some money. Well, now, that's the obvious conclusion, but that's not necessarily the best conclusion. So they might say, we'll gift money, and here they gift, cash or whatever. And you're only allowed to give, all these rules intermix. That's what makes financial planning so interesting and so intriguing. Some say so confusing, but it's thrilling when you look at all these different components and know how to put them together. And here's one of them. The grandparents in that case might say, how much do you need? And they say, we need $20,000. And they say, here, we'll do $20,000. Or whatever the amount is. How many kids you might have run into this situation where you already have a child in college, now the second one's to come, and the third one's coming next year. So your grandparents say, or your parents say, how can we help? And you get to the point where you say, we're in trouble because we need $20,000 for each of them, and that's $60,000, and we're flat broke. We're going to borrow on our house, do a home equity loan, and the grandparents say, I'll tell you what, we'll take care of at least year one, we'll figure this out, we'll go see our financial planner, but for year one, we'll go ahead and give you $60,000. We want to do that for you. So you say, oh, thank you so much, and they gift you the $60,000. They write you a check and you deposit it, pay the tuition bills. Not necessarily the most effective, because in fact, they have to file, in most cases, a gift tax return if they do that wrong. What do you mean do that wrong? Well, gift tax rules say you're only allowed to gift up to any one person's only allowed to gift any other person up to $14,000 a year before they have to file a gift tax return. Well, what did your parents just do? Your father just wrote you a check for $60,000 and gave it to you. Well, that's a mistake in many cases, because what they did was they didn't consult a professional financial planner. A simple phone call might have resulted in a different answer. Here might have been the answer. There are two potential good answers. Number one might have been take your husband, take your wife, which is the grandmother and the grandfather, each of you gift $30,000, but never mind, let me change that, the financial planner would say. Gift it directly to the student. Gift $10,000 to student one, $10,000 to student two, $10,000 to student three, each from the grandfather, and then $10,000, same 10, 10, and 10 from the grandmother. What have they now accomplished? They've stayed under the radar. No one person gifted any other one person more than the $14,000 that they're allowed to gift in any year without filing a gift tax return. Bingo. That's the whole difference between having to file a gift tax return and not having to file any gift tax return. No taxes at all. There wouldn't have been taxes sometimes if you file a gift tax return, but we know there aren't any if you do it the other way. But here's another strategy. We get to the articles like this. Why do you think I do all this research with this 529 and grandparents? We get to the point where, again, no grandparent or parent or anybody can gift more than $14,000 a year without a gift tax. But get this. How about a grandparent being allowed, if they gift to a 529 plan instead of individually, they're allowed to accelerate 5 years worth of $14,000 a year maximum contributions without having to file a gift tax return. Accelerated 5 years means 14,000 times 5. $70,000, no gift tax return, because they gifted it to a 529 instead of the people individually. The other spouse could do it too. That's $140,000 a year. So if the grandparents are looking to move money out of their estate, trying to protect money from being lost to a nursing home, who knows what the strategies are? We look at these different. All we want to do is help with college, and all of a sudden now we're starting to reduce our estate tax, our probatable estate, protect assets from Medicaid if that's what they were trying to do, or a nursing home, get assets over to the family without any gift tax returns, and get the money to financial institutions for college. There are loads of resources and opportunities in these articles I'm sharing. This is why I do all this research, but that's just one of the strategies of many. So when I share these resources with you, I'm not saying do it yourself, but I am trying to help you here. That there are a lot of resources with advanced strategies and some with very elementary strategies. Now here's another source I want you to go to, usnews.com. And then I want you to do a search. They have links up at the top, and one of them says colleges. So you click on the colleges link. There are lots of great articles. And it says, the one I'm looking at, but there are many of them, it says, use 3 tips to allocate college savings for graduate school. Because we don't think about graduate school sometimes. But they'll say review the 529 plans, get to the college administration, which is another one. Get to your financial aid departments in high school and get to your financial aid departments at college. Don't trust only that. Go to admissions and go to the financial aid counselors. But all of that can help. Now remember, we've got some 529 plans that are age-based with these states. So again, I think you're better off to just do comprehensive financial planning rather than try to do all this yourself because it's so complicated. But there is a site that printed this article. Well, I printed the article, and it's Morningstar. So Morningstar had some good articles on this, and that's the one where I found 529 plan age-based funds. And they were talking about diversification issues and things like that. So you can always go to Morningstar and look at those. Now, next, we talked about UGMA and UTMA accounts. That's Uniform Gift to Minors accounts, uniform transfer to minors accounts. That's anybody under the age of 14, anybody under the age of 18. Specific rules on this. I covered this on a show already, and I went into it in greater detail. But sometimes people will gift money directly to the child. Well, the child's 2, or age 2, or 10, or 12, or whatever it is. They're less than 18. So you can't gift money directly to the child in the child's name and have not have somebody overseeing the funds. So they have to have a guardian or a trustee or a custodian or somebody until they're age 18. Well, that's where it'll automatically, wherever you give that money, when the parents go to open the account on behalf of the child, the bank or financial institution's going to say or ask, okay, who's the custodian going to be? So somebody, you say, what do you mean? Oh, it'll be me. And they say, okay, here's the custodian form, and you fill it out as a parent, no big deal. You go home and tell your wife or go home and tell your husband. And they're kind of ticked off because they're, well, how come it's not me, or who knows? You know, it could be that kind of a problem too. But here's the other problem. Did anybody tell you once that child's 18, that money becomes automatically theirs, even if they don't go to college? And if they did tell you that, would you still have made that direct gift to that child? Well, maybe, maybe not, but I think you need told that in advance. So when you want to do research on UTMA accounts or UGMA accounts, many different sources. U.S. News and World, yes. Here's another one, Forbes.com. I find excellent articles with Forbes.com. I went on to, and don't forget, we talked about this already, the kiddie tax, remember? And there's some great articles on the kiddie tax, but when we talk about UTMA, UGMA accounts, we're immediately involving ourselves in possible tax consequences and complications, maybe even tax nightmares, but some of it's called the kiddie tax, so a portion of it is that. That's KIDDIE, by the way. And I went to NOLO.com, NOLO.com, got some good resources on that. I also went to the TaxAdvisor.com. That's the Tax Advisor, ADVISER.com on that. And they talked a lot about the kiddie tax on some of these sites. Now, some of these sites will say, you'll see a financial advisor spelled O-R, and sometimes you'll find it E-R. Hey, folks, I don't even know how it's supposed to be spelled. Some spell it E-R, some spell it O-R. I don't know. So I guess it's tomato. Now, you go to the IRS site. That's a pretty good place to go. We've seen some problems with what's printed on the IRS site not necessarily being upheld in the law, so that's been weird because we go on there with an IRS regulation in publication 590 for IRAs that say you can roll over IRAs once a year, as many as you want, and then somebody took it to court 2 years ago and it got overturned, the own publication in the IRS. No, you're only allowed to do one IRA rollover, and then none of your others are allowed to be rolled over. It's a mess. So you take all of these sites with caveat emptor, which means let the buyer beware. Be careful with these sites. I can't say this enough. Don't try to do all this on your own. I'm sharing this on the show to show you all the resources that are available, that there is help out there. Just call our office. I'll help guide you through it. But the IRS site, irs.gov, and you go in there and you check and do research on education's a good keyword, College is a good keyword. 529 is a good keyword. You know, college funding, something like that. And you'll get a lot of this information, not only on the kiddie tax, but also the 529, all kinds of resources on there. And it will really help a lot. The other articles after that, boy, all these are on the kiddie tax. But then we get past that and we get to student loans. What a nightmare. I've talked about this again. This is a wrap-up show today. I'm not getting in depth on any of these areas. I'm just sharing with you. Student loans, boy, all you have to do is do a web search on student loans, and the screen will light up. We have different areas on student loans. Number one, qualifying for them. Number one, having them. And number two, having them. And number three, paying for them, repaying them. Which leads to number four, refinancing them because they're so burdensome. So number one, getting them. It's easy, folks. I'm going to caution you on, don't take any student loans. Try to find ways to avoid going into debt, going to college, or putting your kids through college, period. Which gets to another topic I talked about earlier. What is financial aid? So when you qualify for financial aid, I'll get to the FAFSA next. You'll see, here's how much you qualify for financial aid. You whoopee! You'll say, whoopee, we qualify for all this financial aid, and you are not paying enough attention until after this child graduates, realizing we're $80,000 in debt on student loans, or our student is. They come out of school and graduate burdened under debt. Our main concern used to be Visa and MasterCard. We used to have credit cards being offered to 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds being our biggest problem. We still have that happening. Credit cards are being offered to students and pre-students in college, or at any age, even if they're not in college, before they even work. So caution your children and educate your children. Do not take those credit cards. Some of you will get through to the grandkids and the kids, and some of you won't. I know how that works. But you have to teach them. Beware, stay away from those credit cards, or you're going to be in debt before you even get out of school. Well, these student loans just trump that. They're way, we're talking 80,000, 100,000. At least the credit cards weren't nearly as big. So there are different sites I want to share with you that you can go in and look into. Financialaid.org, but their site is abbreviated, FINAID, for financialaid.org, and then you can check into loans on that. I talked about some of the articles. I did share with you that Congress had forgiven loans for nearly 400,000 people. This was an article I shared. But those are mainly people on disability or on Social Security disability. So if you are one of those people, I need you to go to marketwatch.com and look up the story on student loans being forgiven. And you can talk to me if you can't find that article. Again, with Kiplinger's, there are rules on student loans, and I even see good articles in the Wall Street Journal and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the Pittsburgh Tribune Review on student loans, and I want you to go through those. All right, now, we're running through Remember Education tax breaks. I talked about that on some other shows. I'll pull that out before I get to the FAFSA, just to share sites because I'm running out of time. I have Forbes again, so that's Forbes.com, and one of their sites is also OnForb, ONFORB.es. But you'll find, just go to Forbes.com. There's a site that was 1040.com. And again, I'm not endorsing all these. I'm just sharing these with you, that sites exist out there. Bankrate.com gave some good information on this. The educational tax credits are this whole area that I'm reading through. I went to turbotax.com, got some information. IRS.gov, I got some information. And IRS.gov has publication 970, a huge publication You could see it here. I don't know how many pages it is. It looks like it is a lot. It's almost 100 pages. It's like the publication 590. But this one's on tax benefits for education. And that is publication 970. So that's to the horse's mouth, really. And then I got some other ones. The Boston Globe gave me some good. The Saving for College again. There's so many different good websites. But I want you to understand their educational tax breaks. When you're paying for college, that you can get to some tax breaks back. And anybody who has information, or if you want me to do another in-depth show, tax breaks is a good one to ask me for. FAFSA is a good one to ask me for. And probably scholarships is a good one to ask me for. So I won't do it unless you ask me for it. But if you ask me for it, I will put this back on and I'll do a more in-depth series on some of these components. Now let's get into, and don't forget I brought up the Coverdell IRA. Don't forget that. Let me see what other categories I have here. I have covered most of these scholarships. Don't forget, when you're talking to financial institutions, you might be able to afford expensive institutions more than you can afford seemingly inexpensive institutions. Why is that? Remember, you have to tune into my shows because I talked about the net price calculator, and after grants, subsidies, and scholarships, I am not talking about loans. Sometimes schools that have a very high tuition have super strong alumni associations and scholarship programs, helping reduce the tuition for your student far below what even a state school would have been. So don't forget, don't leave any stones unturned. All right, let's talk about this FAFSA because I'm almost out of time. FAFSA. The most important thing to know about FAFSA is you could do the application online. You could do advanced FAFSAs now, early FAFSAs. We didn't used to be able to do that. And you go into the FAFSA, and everybody talks about the FAFSA. What the FAFSA is we've gone into this in other shows, but the FAFSA is actually you going into apply to see, entering in your information, and you enter in your last year's tax return information. And then you go and you find out what financial aid you might be eligible for from the federal and state levels. And then that information is submitted to the colleges that you chose. You're usually allowed to choose up to 3. And you list those colleges and you put the college code onto the FAFSA, and then they submit that information to the FAFSA, to the universities, and the universities also prepare their own private funding and subsidies that they might be able to help with also to knock that down. The site I want you to go to is fafsa.ed.gov. I'll spell that out. That's F like Frank, A, F again like Frank, S like Sam, A, .ed for education, .gov. And you go there and you will see a whole litany of information and that you can apply for the FAFSA, and you have to update that every year. I have loads and loads of other resources on college planning. I am going to end this series with the ending of this show, and I am now out of time. We'll be moving on to the other areas of financial planning next week. I thank you all for tuning in for this series, and I'll be back again next week with another edition of All Things Financial.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Inc., member FINRA SIPC, and registered investment advisor. Insurance services offered through Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Inc., which is not affiliated with SagePoint Financial Inc.